As a team, we meet with probably 8 new families looking for help planning their retirement every single week. And you know what I found? While many of these folks have entirely different circumstances, many of them ask the exact same questions as they're looking for help from someone to help build out their retirement plan. Come to expect it. But in other cases, I'm not asked certain questions, and frankly, I'm a little shocked when that happens. Now, when you're looking for a planner, it's super important to find a good fit. That goes without saying. But beyond that, the main question you're trying to figure out when you talk to these people is, what do they know that I don't know? What have they experienced that I have yet to experience? What are my blind spots? So in this video, I'll share the top 10 questions that you should ask any potential financial advisor or financial planner during that process. These questions will help you gauge their expertise, how they charge, their objectivity, how they think about investments, and hopefully their overall value proposition. It'll also help you find out when perhaps someone's all hat, but no cattle, or when they're speaking far beyond their experience, or making promises that ultimately they won't be able to deliver on. And full disclaimer, I'm a financial planner myself. If we haven't ever met, I'm Steve Willems, a wealth advisor with the Willems Wealth Planning Group out here in BC. So in this video, I'll give you some color as to why some of this matters in a behind the curtain kind of way, as well as from a consumer or a client perspective, just to help round out your thinking. But to be clear, the point of asking these 10 questions of a planning professional you're thinking about working with isn't so that you can gather a bunch of information and put it in your little jar of information and you put it on your shelf alongside all of your other options. See, many people are perpetual collectors of options. They stockpile them, almost like that TV show Hoarders, but they never actually move ahead. They never actually make progress. 5 years from now, they're doing the exact same thing. They're dealing with the exact same problems that they were dealing with 5 years earlier, even though they've collected maybe 10 more jars of options for them to consider. That's not the point of this exercise. The point of these questions is to help you figure out who can best help you get the right answers to your questions and ultimately lead you through a process to get you from where you're at to where you want to go. The first set of questions revolves around verifying the planner's credentials and ultimately their areas of specialization. So in this area, you'll want to ask, number 1, are you a certified financial planner professional or a CFP professional? The CFP designation is one of the most well-respected in the industry. It requires extensive training in financial planning, adherence to ethical standards, and continuing education. For any moderate level of planning that's going to be required, it's going to be table stakes. And number 2, do you specialize in holistic financial planning that includes tax planning? You want an advisor who takes a comprehensive approach, not just looking at investment management. Tax planning in particular is critical, especially as you approach and enter into retirement. As a CFP professional myself, I know the rigor involved in earning that designation. It's a multi-year process of study, a minimum of 3 years with exams and work experience requirements, ongoing education commitments, all of that. More importantly, CFP professionals are trained in the full breadth of financial planning areas. So investments, taxes, estate, retirement income, insurance, the whole lot. CFP professionals, they'll take a holistic view rather than just operating in silos. So in other designations like the CIM or maybe the CFA, they'll carry more of an investment management focus, while a CFP professional is trained to look at the broader picture. And when you ask about holistic tax planning capabilities, what you're really getting at is whether this advisor or this planner can be your comprehensive guide through the retirement transition and beyond. It's about much more than just investing. Now, while trained in tax, many CFP professionals won't actually have the tax chops of a full-blown CPA. You may have experienced this, where your CPA and your advisor, they're just not on the same page. It's a classic case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. For us, on our team, we know that's a super important part of our work for our clients. We've actually hired a CPA right onto our team so that we're able to deliver that value. What you don't want is you don't want for your planner to constantly just be redirecting back over to your accountant for simple questions that otherwise could be addressed right then and there. These internal CPAs aren't intended to replace your existing professionals, but instead just to complement their work, to improve it, to be looking kind of out the front of the window as opposed to always in the rearview mirror. A simple way to test to see if an advisor is likely to actually do this kind of in-depth planning is just to give them a copy of a recent tax return. And you can ask them to review it and provide some type of feedback. You'll know pretty quickly based on their response if the group that you're chatting with has the actual competencies to speak to this kind of holistic work. Now, the next area to cover is how the advisor gets compensated and what fees you're going to be paying. So to uncover that, you'll want to ask, how much will you make by managing my portfolio? This gets to the heart of the compensation model, commission versus fee only. Now, commissions aren't necessarily bad, but you want full transparency. If they sell products, ask directly, how much would you make when you sell that product? This allows you to gauge any potential conflicts of interest. Another question, can you explain all of the fees involved? Not just your advisory fees, but the total costs. Now, for reference, there are typically three main fees. First, there's the advisor's annual fee for services rendered. Second, there's going to be internal expenses for any funds or investment products that are being recommended. Often, those costs might be called a management expense ratio. And third, there might be any additional hourly or project-based fees for additional services that are being rendered by the firm. The key is understanding the total fees that you'll pay, not just the advisor's cut. Reasonable fees are okay if you're getting the commensurate amount of value. As a team, we're always going to aim for full fee transparency with anyone that we're working with. We outline those costs as well as what those costs cover. In our case, it's covering comprehensive wealth planning that has us building out an income plan, a tax plan, and ultimately an investment plan. 3 separate plans for clients and then the actual execution of those plans over time. The costs on the internal products can really range depending on how an asset mix is going to be built out. It's hard to quote immediately up front. Some holdings might be 20 basis points for a low-cost passive strategy, while other private markets or liquid strategies might come with a much higher price tag. It really depends on the individual circumstance. The next area you're going to want to try to get some sense of is their independence and their overall objectivity. So to uncover that, you may ask, what custodian do you use? Or perhaps, what dealer do you use? Does that create any potential conflicts of interest? Now, behind the curtain here, it's helpful to know if an advisor is affiliated with a specific custodian or fund company that could create conflicts of interest by incentivizing them to recommend proprietary products. This is often the case at the banks or with insurance companies that enlist the support of career agents. So in our case, while we're affiliated with the manufacturer of investment products, and that is an advantage from time to time, we operate fundamentally on an open architecture platform with access to about 16,000 different investment strategies available to Canadians. This allows us to objectively evaluate and recommend the best options for each client situation without being beholden to any single provider. Another good question to ask here is, do you have any unusually high concentration in any particular fund family or investment strategy? This may help gauge if there are any disproportionate relationships or revenue sharing agreements that could unduly influence their recommendation. Now, concentration here isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just needs to make sense. A massively diversified financial advisory practice where every single client holds a completely different strategy from each other is without question, for me, even scarier than a concentrated one. Because an advisor who's running a practice like that likely has no way to do actual proper due diligence on thousands of holdings across their entire client base. Frankly, that'd be a bit of a nightmare. Next, if this planner is also going to be helping manage your investments, you'll want to ask about their investment philosophy. So here, what is your investment philosophy in one sentence? This is an absolutely killer question, and I'd be shocked by the variety of answers you would hear. You'll want a succinct, clear investment philosophy up front. A rambling response about it depending on goals or risk tolerance might be kind of true, but it's a red flag. For us, our one-sentence philosophy is we follow an evidence-based approach that uses broadly diversified, low-cost, passive investments with a little bit of hot sauce on the side. This is quite different from the actively managed, higher-cost strategies predominantly found in Canadian investment portfolios. A good follow-up question could be to ask for examples that would help expand on that philosophy. You can think of investment approaches kind of like grocery stores. You don't want the dollar store, the rock bottom fees, but have kind of poor quality, nor do you necessarily want the Whole Foods experience, high prices, maybe without the commensurate value. The goal here is probably going to be, for most people, the Trader Joe's approach, right? Getting excellent value for the cost that you're paying while avoiding those unnecessarily higher fees. This next question almost feels like a righteous trick because it reveals something without the person even knowing it. Here, ask, how many clients do you work with? You see, the average financial advisor in Canada serves about 221 households based on this Investment Executive 2023 Advisor Report Card. However, there's also a theory called Dunbar's number, which suggests that humans can only maintain about 150 stable relationships at once. For our firm, we intentionally keep our client base smaller than average to ensure that we can provide truly personalized service and maintain a high quality level of relationship. So while the industry average is at that 221 figure, which means that half are even higher than that, we keep it at about 86 clients per client servicing team member. Our goal isn't to be the biggest, but to be the best partner for our clients. This next question is helpful with setting expectations. You'll ask, how frequently will we meet and how available will you be? Will it just be an annual meeting, quarterly? Are there set financial planning appointments? We make it a point to have an open line of communication and to meet regularly, typically biannually, to proactively review your situation, make sure all the necessary adjustments are being made according to those tax plan, that income plan, and that investment plan. Especially in the early stages of a new relationship, admittedly, we're probably going to be sitting down maybe 5 or 6 times in a short sprint of sorts as we get up to speed with all the moving parts of someone's situation. Now, the last question looks at the human side. Beyond just investments, what are the non-financial reasons for hiring you? Now, while investments are important and wealth planning is key, there ends up being so many other dimensions to a successful advisory relationship. Often, the relationship starts solving one specific problem, maybe a tax problem. But what we find is often it expands. There's so many other areas. Essentially, this person's acting as a guide in a changing landscape, not just a person there to kind of hold up and defend an outdated map. As a result, you'll want to be eager to work with this person. You want to value what they have to say. You'll want to appreciate as well the spirit in which they say it. Do you see their ability to think critically? Do they communicate well? To intersect into the things that you care about? Or are they just yabbering on and kind of waving their hands and talking about the upcoming election or interest rates or all these other things that they actually have no control over? So those are some of the additional considerations to explore when you're vetting potential planners. So hopefully by asking these questions up front, you'll be better equipped to find a planner who aligns with your values, provides the comprehensive services that you're looking for, and ultimately operates with the transparency and your best interests at mind. Hope that helps. I really just wanted to create a resource there to help people make better decisions and ultimately get more value out of the planning relationships generally. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.